So this is week 60 in Intuitive Momentum Fitness. And so welcome back. I took a week off last week, or took the day off, and didn't do the live. So I think most of you saw that I was in a car accident Tuesday night, and nothing super major. I mean, has major elements, but thankfully it wasn't like a collision, and no one was injured. I had two people with me. We went up to a camp to play pickleball with a guy that works up there, and it was raining down here, and up at the camp they had a covered area. And it's a little bit up into the coastal mountains here in Oregon. And so on the way back, so the camp isn't at a super high elevation, but getting to the camp, getting out of the camp, you have to go through high elevation. And there was about an inch of snow on the way back. And so coming down one of the roads, really narrow roads, I don't think were made really well. They're kind of slanted outward. So coming down the hill and around the corner, and like I said, going slow, and I was in first gear, and the car just kept drifting, and we went over the bank, and it was a scary moment. Wasn't sure how far, because those drop-offs are really steep there, but we slid into some small trees about 8 feet down, and so it was like super gentle, really smooth. It was like, the best way to have an accident that you can have, and we were able to climb out. The car was like quite an angle, so it was challenging trying to get out of the car. But we were able to climb out, and the next day happened to work out to get a tow truck to come and pull it out, and so that's why I missed the live last week, and appreciate your understanding for that. Car is in the shop. I still need to call and find out what it looks like, what the damage is, and how long it's going to take to get it fixed and order the parts and all the things. But most of the damage was from pulling it out of the ditch with a tow truck. It was quite an angle, and had to hook on to underneath parts of the car. I'm not a car guy. And so it just probably just wrenched a whole bunch of things around. But, so while there was no physical injury or jarring or any whiplash even, it was crazy to experience the PTSD, the complex PTSD of childhood, of trauma response if I ever made a mistake or anything bad happened. And that was something I was definitely experiencing, both when the accident happened on Tuesday night and then last Wednesday, as I was watching the tow truck guy try to pull it out of the snow and hook up and have to dig stuff, and so it was just it was. And then going to Les Schwab, I went to have the front end aligned because it was pulling to the right, and then they come out with a $650 estimate of what they would need to fix before they could align the wheels. And then realizing I needed to take it into the dealership, and being able to drive it in, even though it was still pulling to the right, and just all the steps along the way, and then getting to the auto body shop and finding out that I was going to have to leave it there for at least a week, probably a couple weeks, and not having any arrangements, And so just like one thing after the other for a couple days in a row, 3 days in a row, feeling like I did something wrong, I'm being punished, like I don't know, and, logically realizing that, that's so not the case, but then also realizing, hey, Lorrie, glad you're able to make it. So yeah, but then just like not being able to ignore the fact that my body was having a trauma response, and just like trying to soothe it, and but also just let it have take its course, I guess, and just observe and just realize, what, I've experienced too many things in the past for me to just be able to chill. Like I was choosing to chill, but my body couldn't chill. I was noticing that as I was watching the tow truck driver work on pulling the car out, all my muscles were shaking, and adrenaline was going, and the hypervigilance and all of that. So I was working on breathing and self-soothing, and just being really aware of what was happening in the moment. So so that's a little bit of an update on that situation last week. But it kind of relates to what I want to talk about, because I want to talk about what do you do when your healing is interrupted by your healing. And I'll read the meme that inspired that thought. This is from Notes from Your Therapist. The Instagram page profile is called Notes from Your Therapist, and all it is all these pictures of these notes, handwritten notes that are really wise and really helpful. And I forget the name of the lady that runs that page, but this one says, sometimes things that happened in your life were a bigger deal than you were allowed to think. But it's okay now if you want to say they were a pretty big deal to you, and still are. So I think that is part of what happens when it just made me think of my trajectory of like getting away from my controlling home at 22, joining the Marines, having kind of a chaotic experience with the Marines, and then having to get myself together again and do some odd jobs, and then start massage school, and then got into my fitness career, got a job at the YMCA, and was able to start offering massage there, but also get experience in fitness, get some training, offer some training, and then continue to progress in that next, another job in fitness, helping open a brand new hospital-owned fitness facility. And then what seemed like the ultimate, so it seemed like I was on this trajectory of getting healthier, getting stronger, getting more energy, building my career, being seen as a competent, respectable person after a childhood of like being discounted over and over and over again, and ridiculed and devalued and all the things that abusive people inflict. And I got this offer from a massive hospital system that owned a wellness center in Michigan, And I went out there and took that job and was making more money than I'd had made up to that point. And it seemed like I was like progressing, going along this healing journey, moving into bigger and better spaces, becoming more and more professional, taking on more responsibility. And I was kind of stronger than I'd ever been, and probably stronger than I am now, just with having interesting availability of strength equipment in the last couple of years. But yeah, so there was a lot going on, and then I started, I was put in a situation where I was working for someone. My boss was someone who was very much like my dad, and didn't give me the benefit of the doubt, and had all these assumptions about my abilities, and told me I wasn't doing my job right. And in hindsight, I realized that they wanted me to be a micromanaging manager, and they didn't want me to be a empowering, uplifting manager, like giving people some leeway, some extra slack on their leash. So I started to doubt myself, and they sent me to like manager training events, and because they told me I was a bad manager and all this stuff. And so all of a sudden, like, I'm feeling all of this self-doubt and uncertainty and insecurity that I thought I was like moving past, that I thought I was like outgrowing, because it was associated with abused little insecure me, not the current adult me. And so my healing journey was interrupted by my healing. And I'll read this meme again now that I've given some background. Sometimes things that happened in your life were a bigger deal than you were allowed to think. But it's okay now if you want to say they were a pretty big deal to you, and still are. So what I've learned over the last 4 to 6 years is that the things that were happening to me for the first 22 years of my life were way bigger than I even realized. And my method of coping was to really focus on the positive, and to the point where I was not seeing really what was happening. And it was truly the best way for me to get through it. Like, my body did so well helping me survive what I was experiencing. And so I wouldn't change it. But also my trauma response, so instead of fight or flight most of the time, it was fawn, freeze and fawn. So freeze, like mind would go blank, body would lock up, or fawn, where I would become the caretaker of my abuser and assistant and enabler and all of that. So it was programmed into me to make sure that no one else knew that there was anything going on. So of course, for the up until Michigan, so there's about 10 years ish there, or maybe more. 13 years that I'd been on my journey. And it was my number one priority to make sure everyone believed I could handle it, whatever it was, all the overwhelming things that scared me to death because it was the first time I was doing it and I had been told my whole life that I couldn't do it. I couldn't move forward unless I was able to reassure everyone that I could handle it. And so what happens when you keep going down that road and pretty soon apparently you can't handle it? And you're like, oh man, they've found me out. Like, they're telling me I'm a bad manager. I must, that's probably true. Because I've been trying to reassure everyone, keep everyone calm, because I'm assuming that I probably will be bad at this because my dad told me I was going to be bad at this my whole life, and then it's happening. I'm bad at this, and so then what? And what's really beautiful about your healing being interrupted by your healing is that you're forced to look deeper and see what is under the surface and what is really at the root of the insecurities and the overwhelm that you have, and not necessarily because there's so much pressure to fix it and to not be broken anymore, which I thought was kind of the main goal for a lot of my healing. And some people are really impatient with that process, even for me, they're impatient for me to be done healing. But because I need to honor myself and care for myself and love myself in ways that I haven't experienced. Like my dad didn't experience that for himself, and he didn't give his kids that experience. And so where am I going to get it? I have to get it from me. I am the adult in my life that's most responsible for me. And so I have to be my parent. And I have to allow those uncomfortable things to come up. Just like if you've got a kid, hopefully you let them process the things that they're anxious about, that they're scared about, or whatever. Hopefully you're not shutting them down and saying, oh, that's nothing to be afraid of, and not listening to them. Hopefully you are listening to them and allowing them to process and allowing them to find their courage through their fear. So what do you do? What do you do when your healing is interrupted by your healing? And I feel like anyone that has been on an intentional healing journey knows what it's like to feel overwhelm and disillusion and discouragement, and then within all of that to gather hope, to build a new vision of what life could be, and then begin to move forward toward that one step at a time. And so if you've already had the fortitude to pick yourself up from whatever chaos and pain and trauma you have experienced and construct a plan and begin to take steps forward and begin to see progress and begin to overcome and begin to experience a life that you had never experienced before or thought you could never experience again, and then to have that blow up in the middle of the process, and to have to pick yourself back up and gather the pieces of yourself again after that is extremely monumental. And if you're in that space, you are a rare hero. You are a superhero that is carrying more than anyone should be required to carry. But you are doing the work, and you are the hero of your story. So in those moments, as overwhelming as it is, it's so important to just take a minute and breathe, reevaluate, adjust your plans, because it definitely throws you off course, and keep moving forward. It doesn't mean that your dreams are dead just because it took so much work for you to get the momentum going that you just got interrupted from. Your dreams are still there. Your dreams are still out there. It's still possible for you to experience the life that you hope for. But you may have to take a minute and kind of gather yourself together, reevaluate your timeline, your expectations, make the adjustments that you need to make to move forward, and then start moving forward. One breath at a time, one step at a time, one moment at a time. So, yeah, I know you know what I'm talking about. I hope that's encouraging. I realized I forgot to tag everyone in the post yesterday, so I'll tag everyone in the follow-up to this, and hopefully this is encouraging. So Lorrie says, I was able to sort through old piles of paperwork from 2010, 2012. I just could not deal with that era until now. Some things take so much longer than we expect. Yes, totally. And I'm glad that you didn't try to force yourself to deal with it when you weren't ready. It's so cool and reassuring that it came to you, like you realized, I could probably deal with that now, and that you gave yourself the time that you needed to get that done from 10 to 12 years ago. So good job trusting and listening. So we have some comments from Manavjeet and from Lorrie. So Manavjeet says, I can relate. In many ways, it often feels like weaving or working with textiles. We have this many-stranded masterpiece we create in life, and sometimes in the threads and strands there are knots or tangles. So for me, I can be moving along, feeling like big progress has been made, and that allows me to get to another tangled bit I wasn't even able to reach or perceive before. But we untangle them and unknot them one at a time, and there are no shortcuts. But it isn't a labor, really. Each glorious tangle is a gift we lend our light to. And who notices which knots in a tapestry are supposed to be there or aren't anyway? That's a really, really beautiful visual of this. Just kind of going along, weaving, and not even realizing that there may be tangles along the way that we need to unravel, and yet it's just part of life. And I feel like those of us that are doing healing work and being introspective and self-aware, as we get better at this, we have the potential to live a life better than we would have lived if we hadn't had those challenges. I actually believe that, because those challenges and traumas, if we work with them, give us skills that we wouldn't have had otherwise. And whereas we might have been more stuck in life if life hadn't been as bad, as extreme as they have been, we might have just been, content to be captive to whatever life unfolded for us, rather than being pushed to the point of realizing, wait, I need to do something different than what I've been experiencing. I want to experience something different. I want to experience a different life than I have experienced. And that means I'm going to learn some new skills. I'm going to I'm going to be able to navigate in a new way. And I'm going to choose to learn these things in order to live a life different than I've lived. So then Manavjeet goes on to say, I have an example of this. After 8 years of healing after a trauma, I went in to try Olympic weightlifting with a local teacher I had been inspired by for over a year. I was in the best space I had been in since the incident. Meanwhile, during the 8-week beginning training series, the knot I saw that needed untangling appeared. It seemed to progress for a few weeks, and then suddenly I seemed to progress for a few weeks, and then suddenly I was so insecure I was unable to remember a few moments later the exercise the trainer was telling me to do. I wound up feeling so ashamed of my lack of progress and what felt like ineptitude that I don't think I even completed the full 8 weeks. I did get myself the basic equipment to use at home, but in retrospect, what a difference it would have made if the trainers had Kyler's understanding of this process. I'm still making progress, so grateful for our group here. Danielle, 3 years later, I see that trauma response and inability to progress was due to living in a space too stimulating and stressful for me to thrive. Moving away and changing my life has allowed my body to begin to thrive again. I love that story so much, because that's a great example of feeling like your healing is interrupted by your healing. Like, she got to a really good place after some trauma, and then she'd been inspired by this Olympic weightlifting teacher, and signed up for this class, and then halfway through, some deeper stuff started coming up and preventing her from making progress. And oh man, I feel that so deeply. And for me, I've experienced that most with pickleball. I talk about that sport a lot, but it just seemed like a fun sport to learn. It is really fun and so addicting and everything. And I became one of the best players, among the handful of best players in our club. But then even in that space, I started, at times having panic attacks, playing with these guys and really being hard on myself, and all the negative self-talk that wasn't my voice, but that I was repeating, was coming up and kind of making my level of play go back down at times. And it's weird because if I am in a good space within my own resonance and my own vibration, my own heart, my attitude, if I can really be supportive of myself and cheer myself on, I am magic on the court. I do stuff that I couldn't even have thought to do. And then, as soon as I start getting my mind involved and trying to micromanage my playing, then my skills just go downhill so fast. And so it's amazing to watch that go up and down even within a game or within, a session of play. So, I relate to that story, and how, it totally makes sense that, you might have hit a wall within a few weeks of that Olympic weightlifting training series, and, your trauma responses would have started happening. You maybe had some freeze response and mind going blank and stuff like that. So people who are not trauma informed are just going to be really frustrated with that because it doesn't make sense to them. And I am becoming more aware of how much of the wellness industry and the self-help industry and the motivational life improvement industry, so many of those leaders are not trauma informed. And so they're the expert, and yet what they're saying is not helpful because they're not understanding how trauma works, as opposed to just, a lack of motivation or, willingness to change your life. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that story. Yeah, that's such a good visual and scenario to have in mind, a representative scenario. So yeah, thank you for trusting us with that story. And then Lorrie, you say, yes, I relate to that so much, Kyler. It's been so confusing to me when the healing wasn't taking a nice linear progression to better. It helps so much to know it's way more like a squiggly line that cannot be predicted or prepared for, other than preparing to be resilient and chipper. Yeah, so that's resilience and optimism and a gung-ho attitude. Those are super helpful. And then exciting progress report. I've been able to avoid the Go macro bars for a couple weeks now, and I've started being able to declutter my home office for the first time since 2019. Very, very cool. I'm feeling very supported by this group and super relieved to be able to do things that feel self-compassionate. That is awesome. Really, really proud of you. It's tough, especially with food things. The Go macro bars, I know those were good, kind of a go-to snack that you could have. And I've been in the same spot where over the years, within the last 19 years, I had different standards for my snacks and protein bars, and it's like, I just need some good protein, make sure there's more protein than sugar, and that was like kind of all I was looking at. And then I started realizing, wait, some of this is soy, and I don't do well with soy. And then other ones I had that I thought were like the best bars in the whole world, and then realized, well, I don't feel great. And I started looking into it, and it's the erythritol, the sugar alternative that they're using that they haven't done enough research on to realize that there's some issues with it. So there's, sometimes there's not scientific evidence, but there's anecdotal, like people's actual experiences. And it's like, yeah, I relate to that. Like, that's exactly what's happening for me, and I don't feel good when I eat that. So yeah, I don't get to have protein bars anymore. And Instagram and Facebook keep promoting these protein powders and protein bars, and I keep checking the ingredients list, and there's always something I can't have in there. And so good job for being able to stick to that and kind of stick to your goals and know that you are, it's self-care, even though sometimes it feels like you're not really caring for yourself, because at times having something that tastes good and is convenient feels like self-care, but you know what your goals are, and you are sticking with that. So really proud of you for that. And that's awesome that you just felt like you were in a space that you could declutter your home office for the first time in 3 years, and great job with that. So I also wanted to remind us that, when we're keeping things simple, it's so important to remember that this group is all about simple movement. Yeah, you're welcome, Lorrie. Thanks for sharing that. And so I know that because this group has fitness in the title, and even though you know me better than this, I know it can be easy for you to start seeing me as your kind of your taskmaster or whatever, Biggest Loser style personal trainer. And so I just want to remind everybody that we're about keeping things simple. We're about self-soothing. We're about being intuitive. We're about remembering your goals and making small movements toward your goals rather than any radical change. So breathe deeply. Oxygen is life. Drink more water. It's the number one ingredient in your body. Self-soothe. Continual movement from survival to thriving. Sleep well. So take the time to be away from your electronics before going to bed, and set yourself up for a good night's sleep with a dark room and quiet room. If you need to use a fan or whatever, make sure the temperature is right. All the things it's worth doing. Sunlight and circadian rhythm is something I'm learning recently, and we were going to talk about that last week, and I think we'll try to talk about that a little bit more. But just all of the ways that your hormones and the chemicals in your body are in tune with the light around you, and so getting good, clear access to sunlight, even windows filter out some of the spectrum, the light spectrum, and so then your body gets a different signal than it's supposed to get. So I've been trying to get outside in the morning and then get outside again before bed, and just to expose my body to the sunlight, even through the clouds, it's fine. But then eat real food, as nutritious as possible. What foods have the most nutrients in them? Look it up and eat more of that. Move and stretch. So deliver oxygen and nutrients to all the cells in the body through circulation and stretching. And then lift heavy things. Send that signal to your muscles that they're needed. The density of your muscles and your density of your bones are related to how often they get prompted by that challenge of lifting heavy things. And then self-compassion. We're growing and expanding through so much challenging experience that self-compassion is the number one way to keep moving forward and to keep expanding. Practice gratitude. This is the key to abundance. So when you have the choice between looking at what's lacking and looking at what is abundant, look for the things that are abundant. Don't ignore things that need to be addressed, but practice gratitude. And then community. Look at your community. It's okay to outgrow people. It's okay to say, you know what, I just don't enjoy being around this person anymore. I don't feel good. I don't feel inspired to be my best self around that person. And nothing negative toward them. It's just I need something different. And it's okay to have preferences, and it's okay to fine-tune your community. So is your community supportive and validating and helping you expand and grow in the ways that you want? And then purpose. What makes you come alive? What makes you happy? Do more of the things that bring joy. And it doesn't necessarily have to be some big grand purpose. It might be. But it could be just all the things that bring you joy. And I kind of think of like the flowers and the trees and the animals, like they are, moving toward the things that feel good, the sun, they drink up the rain, and they bloom and blossom and grow, and they're beautiful and big and strong, and the animals are swift and powerful and sleek and gorgeous. So they're just living their best life. They're just enjoying it. And we get to enjoy it too. And so if you don't feel like you've got a big grand purpose, just keep doing the things that bring you more joy, that are fun, that are playful, that you like to do. And so that's what I wish for all of you. Just remember to keep everything simple. Be joyful about it. Drink some more water. Eat quality food. Remember your goals. Remember you can reach them, and keep moving forward in a positive manner. So, love you guys. I hope you're doing well. Please share any updates, anything that you could use some feedback on or support with. That's what I'm here for. So, talk to you soon, and have a good week.